Welcome, my friends. I just did my second interview since arriving in the Middle East, and it was absolutely fantastic. Michelle is a friend of mine. We were able to dive into some subjects that I think are going to be quite illuminating for you, and her story of healing is really quite remarkable. But until we get to that, if you are unaware, I am going to be teaching an absolutely revolutionary course on sacred energy exchange, sex. I'm going to be discussing things like pornography, masturbation, the things that we are normally not comfortable talking about. I want to give you the enlightened perspective, the metaphysical perspective about what is really going on when we engage in sex, what it can be applied for, all the different applications of really the most powerful force that exists. So that is going to be pinned at the top of the comments below. So if you want to learn more about sex and ways and things that you've never heard before, sign up. That class is going to start towards the end of November. But until then, enjoy this great interview that I did with Michelle. I'll see you soon.
So I'm curious as to what you think. One of the things that happened to me when I woke up, when I had my first really epic spiritual awakening moment, which was when I went to the jungle and worked with ayahuasca,
Mm.
I came out of there with a number of different thoughts that honestly, in the beginning were really troubling. One was I feel like I've been lied to my whole life about everything.
Mm-hmm.
I had been seeing doctors for so many years, and I discovered that just about everything they did and said to me was harmful, not helpful. And it really cracked me open in a way that it's taken me many years to sort of stitch back together with books like yours and other kinds of self education now.
Mm.
And I'm just wondering, why do we live like this? I'm not the only
Oh,
one. Right? I'm
no,
not the
no,
only one that's been stunned by my lack of education as to the truth prior to this
yeah.
experience.
This is I'll try not to give a long answer, which is really hard for me. Okay, so
I know it's a big one.
the so Michelle, we have to talk about the fact that when we incarnate into the which is where we are, into the lower frequencies of the physical, what we call the third dimension. It's not. It's the third frequency, but anyway, when we incarnate into the lower frequencies of the physical universe, we are so far from where we normally reside. And it's the actual incarnation or reincarnation process. By descending dimensionally and frequentially, essentially we're losing consciousness. And that's why when we get here, who am I? How did I get here? What is the point? Like, right? Deaf, dumb, and blind on an epic level. Okay.
Right.
Which means we are primed for total brainwashing because we don't remember anything. We don't know anything. Right? So so that's the answer. Now, the reason why we are fed lies and everything we have ever been told, as you just, and I mean everything,
Everything.
from A to Z, the whole fucking thing. Right?
Everything in between.
Yes, literally, literally. Okay. Now, why does that occur? Okay, number one, it can really only occur all the way down here, so to speak, if that makes sense, because there's such loss of consciousness. That's why I said we get here, we don't know how we got here, who are we, what is any of this about, right? Okay, primed for complete, utter brainwashing, societal conditioning, and MK Ultra, right? Just primed for it because we're clueless. Okay, now that can really only happen when you're totally clueless. And that's the state of consciousness when we descend frequentially and dimensionally and incarnate within the lower frequencies of the physical universe. The point behind that is to transcend it because the growth comes from the challenge. There is no growth if it's easy. And this is the part, the human mind, the human character, the ego mind identity, which is always seeking comfort and security, which is the real problem, that is the real problem. We need to be seeking discipline and adventure, not comfort and security. So the growth comes from the challenge of being lied to from A to Z and to transcend it, to go within, to start to realize the self and transcend everything that has been pushed upon us in every single way. The growth comes from the challenge. The growth doesn't come from anything other than challenge. And the analogy I always use, it's a ridiculous analogy, but it lands. So when we do the diving, like in the Olympics, they go up there. Now, no one does that I've seen. No one gets up there and does a swan dive, right? Why? Because it's too easy, right? Even if you do, I can do a swan dive. So even if you do a swan dive fabulously, you're not going to get a 10. It's too easy, right? You get a 7.5, maybe an 8, maybe, right? But if you go up there on the high dive and you do a triple backwards somersault flip, right? And you do a good job with that one, that's a 9, 9.5. Why? Degree of difficulty. So risk reward. So the evolution of consciousness, which is the point of all existence, to know thyself and all thy infinite potential. So the idea is to start to understand more of ourselves. And the only way to do that is to be challenged. Because if we weren't challenged, we would never draw more upon ourselves. If I wasn't paralyzed until I had 48 hours to live, I never would have gone so far within myself and summoned more of me because I had to. Because I absolutely had to. I had no choice. It was either that or end of this incarnation, we start again, right? So it's all screwed up here because it's designed that way so we can get the most out of this experience. That is the real reason. And it's only ever this quote unquote difficult in the lowest frequencies of the physical universe, which is exactly where we are now, because that is the furthest away that we could possibly be from our normal location, our normal state of consciousness, our normal state of connectivity and communion, our normal state of self awareness, right? It's the total opposite. We have no idea how we got here, who we are, what anything is about, right? So talk about a challenge. So that's the real reason. It forces evolution, and that's actually the point. I hope you're enjoying this fantastic conversation. But don't worry, there is much, much more to this conversation. So if you're not subscribed, click on that, subscribe, and there'll be more of this interview coming very soon. Until then, be well.